The most important part of this, Piers, is why did Israel act now? Because, look, you could say, oh, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, so we should have gone into Iraq. No, I don't think so. You could say Hezbollah are terrorists, but then Israel has killed 30 times the civilians that Hamas has, let alone Hezbollah. So is the Israeli government, the IDF, and Netanyahu terrorists?
But you don't dispute that Hezbollah has been targeting Israel for years.
Okay. Yeah, and Israel's been targeting Israel bombed Beirut, bombed Damascus.
No, forget Israel for a moment.
Really, Piers? Forget about Israel just for a second. The country currently leading the region in airstrikes per minute. The same Israel that's turned entire neighborhoods into parking lots. Yeah, sure. Let's just forget about them. Right after we forget about gravity and taxes. Meanwhile, Cenk and Candace are out here attempting the impossible, using logic, facts, and basic human decency to talk about maybe not bombing children. But of course, in Jonathan's world, that's just parroting Iranian talking points. If you criticize Israel, you're a terrorist, starring Jonathan. And Piers is out here on a mission to break the Guinness World Record for the longest time spent dodging the words innocent civilians, so buckle up. Because if there's one thing more predictable than Israeli officials denying war crimes, it's Piers Morgan's pretending he doesn't hear them do it. Now, this debate might be about 5 months old, but let's be real, the ideology hasn't aged a day, so let's jump in.
Bomb Tehran, they bomb all their neighbors,
yeah,
but hold on, why now, Piers?
Specifically,
now?
Do you accept that Hezbollah has persistently targeted Israel with endless rockets? Do you accept that?
Oh, they've launched rockets, no question. And I'm sure you guys can see that Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank.
But don't go back to that. So is it fair game, as Jonathan said, if it was Hezbollah terrorists who were specifically targeted through their pages, is that fair game, but given the state of the warfare between Hezbollah and Israel?
Look, I can answer that question, but we've got to get to the more important question.
Well, answer that question first.
Hold on, I'll answer it. So did they check that the 2,800 people and the children near them and the other civilians near them, that they were all, quote-unquote, terrorists before they decided to murder all of them? Now, luckily, only 12 died, but 2,800 were injured. No, they didn't check. And by the way, buyer beware of Israeli products. Apparently, they have bombs in them. Okay,
do you suggest we send them a warning?
The real question is why
you
now?
Remind me of when the BBC asked me if we should have warned the Hamas terrorists who were keeping our 4 hostages before we went in to save them. Why didn't we warn them before? Because civilians were killed in the combat. You are just as ridiculous in your pontification and in your acrobatics to try to smear Israel. You're really unable to say black is black and white is white. And look how low Piers has to go in order to get you to say something against Hezbollah. How low does he have to go in order to justify Israel defending itself?
No, Jonathan, it's easy. It's easy. I call out Hamas and Hezbollah all the time. I wish they would never fire any rockets. I wish there would be no violence.
Right.
You, on the other hand, are totally okay with killing
the
30 times the number. Hold on, let me finish. You're okay with killing 30 times the number of civilians that Hamas did. Obviously, that's terrorism on a mass scale that Israel does.
No, it isn't.
But you say it's okay because we're the good guys? No, that makes you terrorists.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
You didn't want to kill them.
No matter how many times you repeat the lie, it doesn't turn it to be true. Israel is defending itself against a jihadi enemy, an enemy that has said we are not going to stop until we kill all the Jews. I wouldn't want you or anybody else to be in that situation, but that is the situation that Israel is in. We have to defend ourselves against people who say our only goal in life is to eradicate Israel and kill all the Jews who live there and build a Sharia-based state in Palestine. Those are their words. So, I don't know how you think that you could defend yourself against it, but being nice isn't one of them.
You live in La La Land, where you say the Palestinians might prevent an Israeli state. Well, Israel exists, but you prevent a Palestinian state, take away all their freedom, you take away all their rights, you kill them wantonly anytime you want, you destroy all of Gaza, and you pretend not to be the terrorist? So let me ask you something. Is the IDF the most incompetent military in the history of the world, that they just accidentally killed over 30,000 civilians, including over 25,000 women and children in Gaza? Are they buffoons who just cannot ever get the right target? Oh, we got a couple of Hamas guys. Oops, we killed a stadium full of women and children.
Listen,
and you're pretending not to be a terrorist?
Is someone who would be sitting here and doing the apologetics of Hamas. And I say that with a little respect. for you to be saying that without having lived in Israel, without having dealt with terrorists that are going after our families and women and children, without even understanding what Hamas is. You compare Hamas to French resistance fighters? Seriously? You compare Hamas, a jihadi terrorist genocidal organization that says, yeah, well, it's a stupid analogy. It's reckless, and you're whitewashing Hamas by even thinking that you can compare French resistance against Nazi Germany to Hamas terrorists that are willing to burn and butcher and rape and kill Israeli civilians.
I'm not talking about the Hamas terrorists. I'm talking about the civilians you've butchered. I'm talking about
anybody.
I want to bring in Candace here.
A stadium full of dead women and children, and you say that their lives don't count, right? Their lives don't count. Have you ever lived in Gaza?
No, I've never
lived in
the terror
of the Israeli state?
I want to bring in Candace to ask the same question I asked Cenk, which he hasn't really answered in a clear, simple manner, which I think is a very easy question to answer. Hezbollah are wedded to constantly attacking Israel. They are an enemy of Israel, as Hamas are. So is it, as Jonathan said, fair game for Israel to have conducted this operation, which appears to have been almost, and I use that phrase very advisedly, almost exclusively against Hezbollah terrorists?
If the operation was targeted almost exclusively at Hezbollah operatives and it was surgical, I think every state has a right when it's being attacked to launch an attack back at the operatives that are attacking them. That's a very easy answer for me. And I take, by the way, Jonathan, great exception to you painting me as some like broad defender of Middle Eastern, you said the Palestinian people. I just defend innocent life. And so whether it's October 7th and Israeli children being killed and Israeli children being taken away, I used my platform to say how wrong it was when people were pulling down the signs. And I'm also feeling just as strongly about the Palestinian women and children. And I don't like when people try to conflate humanity as some political position that's against the Jews or against the Palestinians. At the end of the day, the preservation of life is what needs to come first. And I don't feel, if you did this in Lebanon, great, I'm happy for that. I don't think that has been your priority in Gaza. And I use my platform to say how wrong I think what's happening is there. But that's not a condemnation against Jews or the Jewish people. It's a condemnation against Netanyahu's government, which I think has become somewhat radicalized. And I think that's a fair critique, given the fact that you have so many Israelis that are taking to the street protesting him, as well as the families of the people who are hostages who have been protesting him and speaking out, as well as some of the most prominent Jews in America, like Ari Emanuel, who is a Zionist, who has said that he thinks what Bibi Netanyahu is doing is selfish. So I think it's important to separate what is fair critique and an understandable emotion that people are having, seeing so many dead Palestinian children on their screens every day on X and on Instagram. And I know, Piers, you are also being tagged in these photos of mothers mourning and screaming. It's wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jonathan, specifically for you, is a breaking story that the Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, has declared the start of a new phase, his words, of war, as the IDF turns attention to the northern front with Lebanon. Now, that's a massive escalation in what is already a deeply turbulent situation. Can Israel conduct wars on all these different fronts?
Yeah, I will, of course, answer that. And I'll reflect on what you said before, Candace. I appreciate your words, and I think that I agree with you on protecting human life, dignity of human beings. I think we're in total agreement. And if you used your platform for good, humane purposes, I commend it, and that's great. And full stop, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Regarding the current situation in Lebanon, just before coming on, I saw that tweet, and I think what Defense Minister Gallant is doing is messaging to the US and to Tehran and to Beirut that Israel is getting closer, and that the level of frustration within Israel with the current unsustainable situation of more than 70,000 Israeli civilians that have been pushed out of their homes, and tens of Israeli communities in northern Israel that are now ghost towns because Hezbollah has been attacking them directly, and these areas are unsafe to live in. And for 11 months, and I'm sure that many people don't know it because it's not really reported a lot in international media, but Israeli civilians have been targeted by Hamas for about a year, and people are saying enough. For how long are we going to have to live in temporary housing in other places of Israel? And when will the Israeli government make sure that it is safe to live in sovereign Israel? And I think that's a very basic, very legitimate claim of a civilian population that says, enough, we want to go back to our homes. We haven't done anything to deserve this. And I think that there's been a long process of building this up. And to answer the question, yes, Israel can. It'll be tough. It will be, I think, very, very difficult, and it will be a horrible war. If Israel and Hezbollah go all out against each other, Hezbollah is a very powerful Iranian proxy with tens of thousands of rockets, with the ability and intention to hit and kill thousands of Israeli civilians. And of course, Israel will not be taking that sitting down, and Israel will retaliate. And I'm not going to be surprised to see you and perhaps other people first condemning Israel for defending itself, and then maybe thinking why Israel is doing it. What is happening is that Hezbollah has fired more than 5,000 rockets at Israel in the past months alone. They have gone a bit unnoticed by international media, and perhaps Israel now is saying enough is enough and we're going to defend ourselves. And if Hezbollah didn't get the message the first time with the beepers, maybe they'll be getting it today with the walkie-talkies. And if they don't get those two messages and understand that they have transgressed and are aggressing against Israeli civilians too much, then maybe perhaps more needs to happen. I, as an Israeli, hope that we won't need to go to that situation, because I know that it will be bad. There will be bloodshed. It will be carnage in Israel and in Lebanon. It is still avoidable, and those who need to stop firing are Hezbollah, who have been firing at Israel for the last 11 months without anybody really condemning it or doing anything about it.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Cenk, I'll give you the final word on this part of the debate, and then I'm going to say goodbye to you and Jonathan. And Candace, you're going to stay on just for a little bit of a chat after. It's just me and you. So just, Cenk, your response to what Jonathan just said there. Clearly, this is a massive escalation already. Nobody's quite sure how Hezbollah is going to respond. But as Jonathan said, they are equipped to, if they go all out, to have a proper massive major war with Israel, which would have enormous repercussions for the whole region. What is your thought about that prospect?
Yeah, so first of all, there's a correct path here. Take the ceasefire, stop the occupation, 2 states, and let both Israel and the Palestinians live in peace and freedom.
None of this is related to Hezbollah. Sorry to interrupt, but none of this is related to Hezbollah.
It's 100% related to Hezbollah.
No, it isn't. Hezbollah, this Iranian proxy, has nothing to do with Palestinians. Hezbollah has nothing to do with Palestinians. They are Lebanese. They are Shiite Lebanese. They have nothing to do with Palestinians. They have nothing to do with Palestinians. There's not a single Palestinian in Hezbollah. So for you to tie it to Hamas is ridiculous.
No, you're
it is whitewashing.
Ridiculous.
It's the old, tired propaganda against Israel. You have to be honest and address the situation. Hezbollah has nothing to do with Palestinians.
Hezbollah is doing it because of the occupation. Are you so stupid you don't understand that?
None of Hezbollah's business. Nothing to do with Hezbollah.
Oh, who all the Muslims. Watch us.
Who appointed Hezbollah other than their Iranian masters to have anything to say about Israel and Palestinians? What have Lebanese militias got to do with it?
You don't want peace. I know. You want to occupy and steal their land as long as humanly possible. I got it.
Hezbollah doesn't have a say. It's not their business. It's Israel and Palestinians. If you were to say, take a ceasefire with Hamas, I would say that's a valid topic to discuss. What does Hezbollah have to do with Palestinians? Absolutely nothing. The only thing that they have in common is that they are
you think
funded by
Hezbollah is
Iran.
attacking Israel out of thin blue air? Do you actually genuinely believe that Hezbollah is attacking Israel for no reason at all, just because they don't like Jews? No, they're attacking you because of the occupation. Are you so incredibly ignorant that you don't understand that simple concept?
The only ignorant person here is you, my esteemed colleague to the panel, to be parroting Iranian talking points and
blah, 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 blah. I know. Everything is terrorist. Anyone who's opposed to Israel is terrorist.
And you can't even make a coherent
Israel
claim.
can murder anyone they like, but they're not terrorists.
When it comes to what has Hezbollah got to do with Palestinians? Nothing, except that they have the same benefactor, Iran, that is providing them weapons. Nothing else. No logical connection, no religious connection, no territorial connection, nothing. only empty
Piers,
talking points from people like you and from Iranian parrots. That's it.
Yeah. I know. Poor victim Israel. Oh, they just have been humiliated and oppressed and occupied for 57 long years. 5.5 million Muslims, and they're outraged to find out that other Muslims might not love that idea. So this, look, guys, Piers, this is the most important part of this. Right now, the reason I brought up the ceasefire is you could take the ceasefire, and I guarantee you that Hezbollah stops the rocket attacks. That's because that's what not only they've said, our experts say, every single expert in the world says. But instead of taking the ceasefire, what Netanyahu has decided is, in order to protect his own political career, and he's deeply unpopular in Israel and faces corruption charges, but if he signs the ceasefire, the right-wing radicals in his government will leave the government, and Netanyahu will go to election and lose. So he's worried about his own political career. So he has decided to go to war.
All right, folks, after sitting through the masterclass and talking over people, let's give a round of applause to Cenk and Candace for actually trying to talk about facts and human decency, while Jonathan over here is running the Zionist Tactic 101 playbook. Shout over anyone who doesn't echo your talking points, then claim victory. A true art form, really. And Piers, well, Piers spent most of this debate acting like a passive bystander, letting Jonathan dominate and talk over Cenk for what felt like 90% of the time. Seriously, I was waiting for Piers to at least pretend to moderate, but nope, that would have required some kind of balance. Now let's talk about Netanyahu for a sec. He can't afford to end this war, can he? It would be instant re-election time, and when there's war, there's no election. His political career is riding on this, and he's more than willing to sacrifice innocent lives to hold on to power. That's some next level strategy I've ever seen. In the end, Cenk and Candace made some valid points though, and while Jonathan's brain short-circuited under the pressure of logic, it's clear who's speaking the truth here. Sorry for letting this video play on so long, but hey, kudos to those who stuck around till the end. You're the real MVPs, and I think we've all learned something today, especially about how some people can talk a lot without actually saying anything. Till next time, folks, stay skeptical, stay woke, and remember, some people don't need a mic to talk. They just need a really loud voice and zero facts. Catch you on the next one.